Right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this session on using innovation to drive sustainability in manufacturing. I'm Gareth Kane, I'm chairing the session, and I've been working in sustainability for about 25 years. I'm an author, a consultant, all-round know-it-all, whatever you want to say, but this isn't about me, and I'll move quickly on to our fantastic panel we have here today and ask them to introduce themselves. So first up, Zoe, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Zoe Brunlow. I'm the brand director at Duo UK. We're a polythene packaging manufacturer, consultancy and distributor. We specialise in e-commerce packaging for online retailers, and our clients include Tesco, JD Sports and JD Williams. But not only do we manufacture packaging, we also collect our clients' waste and recycle that as part of a closed-loop recycling system.
Brilliant, thank you, Zoe. Chris?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Chris Harrop. I'm the Director of Sustainability for Marshalls PLC. We're a building materials and hard landscaping, concrete, natural stone specialist company, UK PLC, FTSE 250 listed. And it's probably, our claim to fame is that I'll guarantee that you've walked all over us, probably in your street or in your back garden as you've walked on paving, and there's probably a 50-50 chance you've sat on us as well, given that we have a part of our business that produces public furniture and we call it landscape protection. So I'm looking forward to the debate.
Brilliant, thank you, Chris. And last but certainly not least, Jeff.
Gareth, good afternoon. Thanks very much. Jeff Mackey, working within BASF. We're the world's largest chemicals technology business, and one of my roles, I'm responsible for the European Sustainability Champions Network within BASF. Chemicals technology, for those people who aren't informed as much, is kind of up the value chain. We're pretty much at the top end of most value chains for manufacturing.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So you can see we have a medium-sized company, a large company, and a huge company. So we'll get quite a different perspectives, hopefully, as we run through the session. As I said at the start, the topic is using innovation to drive sustainability in manufacturing. And I want to emphasize the innovation bit. I don't want to get too bogged down on environmental management and incremental changes. I want to really emphasize the innovation side of things. And secondly, I'd like the session to be as interactive as possible. So if you have your chat box open, fire away with questions. I will try and bring them in as and when appropriate. And I will favor the ones that are mainly about innovation. So the first question I have for the panel today is, what are the business drivers that are pushing you towards innovation for sustainability? And I will start again with Zoe.
I'm really proud that actually, as a business, we're actually in a position where sustainability is really driving a lot of decisions that we are making, and it's helping us evolve. To do that, we've had to be really brave, open to learning, and also really try new things. We've always been approached with new products, and so with some of them, you have to do your due diligence, see what they're like, but also, certain things give them a go and see what's out there, because there's so much research and, innovation being brought to the market. It's a really exciting time. As you can imagine, plastics is a product that, we sell and that we manufacture, and it is being persecuted quite a lot, but we're quite proud that we have got a culture within the business that really uses that challenge and uses those drivers to evolve our business. So, I think it does actually help us being a manufacturer and having those engineering mindset of whenever we see a problem, we're always looking to find a solution for it. And we've got really great relationships with our clients, and we openly ask them, what's going on in your business, what are you trying to achieve, and then work with them to come up with the solutions, whether that's redesigning their product ranges, innovating, finding new additives to give the products different properties, and that's something that's really at the heart of what we do.
So from what you're saying, would it be fair to say you're more interested, you look at the sustainability agenda as opportunities rather than problems?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's where our business got to see it as now. I think many years ago people used to see it as a tick in the box, but I think with the right mindset, you look at something and say, okay, this isn't working a certain way. Let's see how we can evolve that and adapt it and make it into a positive step forward.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And Chris, what are the business drivers and Marshalls to make sort of innovative change rather than incremental change?
Yeah. I mean, I think a little bit like Joe was said. So for our business, sustainability is at the heart of what we do. We've been on this journey for the best part of 20 years and previous, and that's about 98% of what we sell, we manufacture in the UK. And understanding what's going on in the UK market is really important to us. So clearly we've got the big drivers that come out of our being a signatory of the UN Global Compact, or commitments to climate change, or ethical sourcing. And we need to, it's a part of understanding things like product carbon footprints, what creates them, what are all the various elements. And then, with that understanding, it helps you work out where the challenges are. So, certainly from an innovation perspective, that's really the only answer to some of these big challenges we've got, whether it's raw materials or carbon. Some of the easy stuff we did, like I said, 20 years ago. So, light bulbs and all the other kind of bits and pieces that were kind of flavor of the moment 15 or 20 years ago, all that's done. To make the big changes, you have to be really innovative. And that driver, back to your question, comes from customers to an extent. It comes from the wider stakeholders. It comes from our own employees. We've got 2,500 employees. What are we doing about the environment? What are we doing about ethical sourcing? What are we doing about fair taxation, et cetera, wages? There's a pressure from them. And more and more, there's a pressure now from shareholders, and certainly things like Carbon Disclosure Project, and we've been reporting to CDP probably 12 years now. And part of that is being able to demonstrate every year that those impacts are going down. And it doesn't come from little stuff. The big changes come from really big innovations in either product mix, product design, product manufacture, delivery, installation, and usage over time.
So you gave quite a list of drivers there. Which would you say at the minute is which one's foremost in your mind?
I think the one that definitely I worry about the most, and we keep a look at is clearly on climate change. And there's based on some of the best estimates and the projections at the moment, we've got about 11.5 years before we hit 1.5 degrees temperature change. Mm-hmm. So that for everybody has got to be the biggest driver. We in the panoply of kind of climate change, prevention, forget that, we can't prevent it anymore. We're into mitigation, adaptation to try and get to resilience. So that driver is from everyone, whether it's customers, shareholders, employees, users. That's the big issue at the moment. It's with us. We're not going to be able to stop 1.5 degrees in 11.5 years. What are we doing about adaptation and mitigation?
And that presumably, given the market you're in, will lead to innovation in terms of sustainable urban drainage and things like that, does it?
It's all the way through. So lots of work on sustainable drainage. So clearly UK climate change, it's going to be issues of weather, rainfall and rainfall intensity, and flooding and coastal erosion. So that's a part of it. But the choices people make in terms of hard landscaping or building materials, they last 100 of years. And some of the oldest concrete paving and concrete buildings are thousands and thousands of years old. So the choices we make now have a big impact on the future.
Yeah. Right. Thank you very much. And Jeff, in terms of SF, what are the drivers on you for innovation?
I mean, the reality for us as a business is that innovation is part of our DNA. We're an R&D business. We've got about 150 research projects in the UK in various forms, and sustainability is actually going for the moment. Gareth, I'm just going to stop there, and I'm just going to move where I am. Excuse me a moment.
Right. Okay, well, Jeff just takes a moment to rearrange himself. I'll go on to the second question. I'm sure Jeff can pick up on the points he was going to make when he rejoins us again. Before I go on to the second question, don't forget chat box questions. I want to make this as interactive as possible rather than 4 disembodied heads talking at you. And Jeff's just reappeared outside before I finish speaking. So, okay, before I move on to the second question, I'll let you have a fair crack of the whip on the first one. So you were talking about you see yourselves very much as an R&D business. So innovation is what you do. So if you'd like to continue that sentence.
Thanks very much, Gareth. The reality is that in the world in which we're living at the moment, we need to innovate. Chris has already mentioned some of the global and societal challenges. And with a business like ours that is so far up the value chain, the answer is we have to take responsibility for bringing some innovation and conversation to our customers and our suppliers. I probably wouldn't use the phrase corporate responsibility, but we need to take responsibility for spreading that innovation and actually having that process and those dialogues. That's a key part of this going forward.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Jeff. So the second question, as promised, as trailed, is what's the biggest challenge you face in terms of innovating for sustainability? So we will start with Chris this time.
I mentioned before, it's about the insight. It's about really understanding where the impacts are. So from the raw materials all the way through to product installation and right the way through to the end of its life, its recycling and its reintroduction into the value chain. And part of the challenge is to understand where all the impacts are, whether it's carbon or water or some of the ethical impacts through that, and then start to tackle the big areas first, which is clearly where the innovation comes. And with that, it's about the standards that we can use and the methodologies we can use to understand those impacts. So there are probably half a dozen, if not more, different ways of calculating product carbon footprints. Well, but then there's an international standard, PAS 2050. And so, part of the challenge is making sure that we do the in-depth work on that impact from cradle to grave, and then tackle where the really big issues are, and then make sure that we are able to communicate that so that customers can make informed choices. And they're using almost an apples and apples. So, if I'm giving a cradle to grave number, it can't be compared to a cradle to gate number, because essentially what you're missing all the impacts out, and whether that either be water footprint or carbon footprint or some of the other aspects. So the insight and using the standards and almost preventing greenwash is absolutely essential. Yeah.
And do you ever find those standards sort of hamper your ability to innovate? Somebody once said that ISO 14001 allows you to destroy the planet in a well-documented manner. And I sometimes worry about, whether standards do block progress. Do you have any insight or experience of that?
Yeah, I think we need to draw the distinction between almost a standard which is looking at a management process, and then a standard that is looking at the measurement of a product impact.
Yeah.
And the standards that, and I'm most concerned about standards that measure product or organizational impact. And what it's doing is highlighting where those issues are.
Yeah.
Rather than, because I could pass a 14001 standard and still, exactly as you described, be a huge polluter, but have a fantastic gold standard for polluting. Actually, the product standards are the ones that say stop polluting, start reducing, keep reducing, and work out where the materiality is, and then give the challenge to the organization from the innovation perspective, because you're not fiddling around the edges.
Yeah.
You're making really good choices based on where the real impact is.
Fantastic. Okay, Jeff, in a global brand such as yours, what are the challenges you face in terms of innovating for sustainability?
I think I'd probably start to answer that by saying that the range of challenges any business faces is enormous. And as you've already touched on, we're a global business, and that causes its own challenges. For us, we use a process called the materiality matrix. And therefore, part of the conversation is to start by looking across a whole range of things and trying to prioritize where our effort goes, trying to prioritize what's important to us holders. The question of standards is a good one, but the other point I would make, and I quite like the challenge of, are we hampered by regulations? The honest answer is, I think all of us have the duty to challenge the regulatory environment. And it's the same as people challenging what we do. The reality is that's part of the innovation process. And therefore, if the standards we're working to don't fit what our customers' value chain or even society needs, then the answer is challenge them, have a voice, go and have that conversation with the policymakers and, if necessary, the governments.
Yes. I once heard a senior UK policymaker say that we're struggling to reconcile the circular economy with the waste hierarchy. And I was sort of thinking, well, that's like just the waste hierarchy is a rule of thumb. Why on earth would you be constrained by it? So yeah, I did some challenging that day. So thanks for that. So the question for both from Chris and Jeff, we've got this idea of measuring where and to find out where the problem is and then tackling that as a priority. How does that translate then, Zoe, to a medium-sized business such as Duo?
Yeah, I do agree those are very relevant points, and I think I'm just going to take things in a slightly different direction as well, because one of the biggest, I suppose, because you look at all different areas and see what you can do, and some things are enforced on you as well. So for one of the biggest challenges facing UK businesses is like the plastics tax that's coming up next year in April 2020, obviously 2022, whereby if your product doesn't contain 30% recycled content, then you're going to be taxed on £200 a tonne. I think the ambition is absolutely right, to encourage people to use more recycled content, but whether a tax is the right way forward, I suppose that's a question that's up for debate, because as well as companies got the challenge of having a look at the products that they use, making sure that they can be evolved so that they can contain 30% recycled content without impacting on the performance, or maybe looking at alternatives if they can't. There's a lot of audits that go on along with this as well, so a lot of manpower trying to get that trail within their organisation. And I think we'll all agree as well that companies are extremely stretched at the moment, I think that companies should be encouraged to be sustainable, but I don't feel as though it's always the right way to almost like being them costed into doing so. Because like I said, so many, if we did have a look at what the most prominent areas are, maybe would that be one of the top areas? I don't know. It's going to be different for different businesses and different industries. But we've spent the last 24 months, really helping customers get ahead. But by redesigning the packaging range and maybe designing out ways, streamlining the stuff which should be going on anyway, and it has already been being done. And so we've at the moment, I think it's about 60% of our products do contain 30% or more recycled content. But so that's fantastic. We're well on our way. Our clients are, feeling at ease that they know there's not going to be a big bang at the end of the year with the products. They're comfortable. However, there's so much more to consider, beyond that as well, because with the 30%, there needs to be that amount of material available in the marketplace. So the recycling needs to be happening now, so that we can continue that 30%. So, I mentioned before about we're doing our closed loop recycling. I'm sure a lot of other companies are doing that as well. But touch on a point what Chris mentioned before, it is about sharing what's going on with your suppliers, with your customers, and you do have to collaborate and work together on this. It can't just be right, we're going to try and do this on our own. It's really opening up the conversation and being transparent and sharing space.
Yes. Transparency seems to be the theme of what you're saying there, and also this sort of traceability, being able to make sure, to know what's where, and et cetera, which can be a real challenge. Okay, I'm looking at the questions list. I haven't had anything through. I really would like this to be interactive, unless I haven't scrolled down, but I think I'm doing the right thing. But please do ask questions. We've got some very interesting points emerging there from the first two questions. The my third then question is, and I will start with Jeff this time, is what innovation are you proudest of?
Ooh. I suppose I can deal with that one on a number of levels. I've already said that our business is an R&D business, but from my side of things, the steps that we've taken in the last 3 or 4 years, particularly regarding carbon literacy across our business, we've actually rolled out carbon literacy not just to our colleagues, but also we rolled it out to the colleagues in the UK to start with, then across Europe, and we've moved up stakeholders. And from my side of things, part of the answer to this entire conversation is for people to better understand the decisions they're taking professionally and personally. And therefore, from my perspective, carbon literacy is a really good starting point to allow people to better understand their decision making. It's a little bit glib to say a bit of education doesn't do a lot of harm, but I think if we all knew more, it has to be part of the way forward.
Yeah. And how do you find that carbon literacy lands? You know, do people understand the link between the carbon side of things and their day-to-day job?
To be honest, we've designed the 8 hour program to ensure that it lands.
Yeah.
It lands with people both personally, because actually from the choices we all take in our personal lives with how we choose to live through to how we choose to work within our sectors, within manufacturing, and the choices that we make at work, the answer is there has to be those touch points, and people can see it's all part of a positive process. So from our perspective, it's an excellent step forward, and I've been really, really pleased with how my colleagues have supported the rollout of this. It's been fantastic.
Right, great, thanks, Jeff. Zoe, what innovation are you proudest of?
Well, yeah, quite a funny story, really, because I think with any system, with any innovation, there's I think you've always get where there's the ambition and progress can sometimes like outpace. And what I mean by that is that about 5 to 6 years ago, we secured exclusivity of a product called Green PE. So that's polyethylene, which is derived from sugarcane. It's completely renewable, it's carbon negative, and that mailing bag that's made from Green PE, it's a drop-in solution for us. We don't need any adaptations to our machinery, and neither do our clients. So you can imagine, as a manufacturer, we thought we struck gold. We thought this is a perfect product that our clients are going to be just the market's crying out for. The clients will be like, phones are off the hook, everybody's going to want it. However, we really did struggle to sell it, and it wasn't for a good couple of years afterwards until the pace started to really pick up. And I just actually go back to the customer feedback was, they didn't have the budget for the product. It was a little bit too new for them. And then also it wasn't on the agenda really. They were focused on other priorities within their business, and a bag that was carbon negative and from a sustainable source just wasn't what they were crying out for. But then I'm sure you'll all remember it as well, the David Attenborough Blue Planet program landed, and we all took as a business oh goodness, this could go one or two ways. And it was quite an interesting time for us, because I think we really did feel like the Attenborough effect that everyone was talking about. So from us having barely any sales of these Green PE mailing bags, it was really interesting that the clients were then picking up the phone saying, okay, tell me a little bit more about that product that you're telling about. I think we were interested in that. And it was really exciting. There are great products out there, but it is about timing sometimes. Yeah. And now it's one of our most popular selling products, and the clients love it, and it is it's moving us away from those polyethylene derived from finite sources, and now we only, our virgin material is less than 50% of what we extrude. Yeah. So it helped with that, but in innovation it can be challenging.
Yeah, well, it's a very interesting point, because there's a American marketing expert called Jacqueline Ottman who talks about the green graveyard of green products, which were very good innovations in terms of environmental terms, but for one reason or another, the market wasn't there for them. So that's interesting that Hugh sort of ran up against a little bit of the market being unsure, and then bingo, one TV program and the floodgates open.
Yeah, and I think what has changed as well since that period in time as well is like consumers are more being more switched on, and they're challenging brands to like ask them, you know, what are you doing about the environment, and if there's something that they don't like, they'll speak up. Like social media has played a big part in that, I believe, as well, and that's helping drive change in the right direction.
Fantastic. Chris, the innovation you're proudest of?
Yeah, I'll talk about it. It's absolutely chime with Zoe. I've got a whole warehouse full of things in the green graveyard, but I've not got rid of anything because everything has its time, and these things will come out. So I think in terms of the proudest moment in innovation, I think it goes back to kind of 2007, 2008, where we started working with the Carbon Trust on product carbon footprinting, and we were part of the Pathfinder for helping to develop that standard and see how appropriate it was to do cradle to grave and where all the data sets were. And at the time, I think the proudest thing is that I took the decision to do everything rather than one or two products, because my thinking was that it's about giving customers the informed choice to see the impact of different products, whether it's a UK material with different weight, different size, different materials, right the way through to products from China or India or wherever in the world. So it was over 5,000 products that we did, first of all, using that Pathfinder, the PAS 2050 product carbon footprint. And what that meant was that it was very explicit what the footprint of all those products were, and the challenge was then set to reduce it. So when you understand, almost every product had a pie chart that said this amount is raw material, this amount is cement, this amount is transport, this amount is factory electricity, this is gas oil, diesel, whichever it was in the whole process, and that was then given right the way through the organization as the challenge. So bringing material in from overseas, the work was then with the shipping lines to choose ships on the kind of the rating that were C and above, rather than choosing the dirtiest G, F, E, D, or whether it was on some of the concrete products where clearly cement was the biggest issue. And hats off to our technical director, who has done amazing things in reducing cement content with cement substitutes and different materials, whilst keeping the strength up, because the product's got to last for 100 years, and reducing massively the carbon footprint. So getting involved early and then making sure everything had it, and that's enabled us to do so much in terms of understanding and then focusing.
Jeff, can I, because Zoe and Chris have given this perspective on sort of market readiness for innovative products. Is that something that you have come across at BASF, and how do you manage it if you've got that the next post-it that somebody's invented but nobody knows what to do with yet?
I know. I think the example you've just given, Gareth, is a very, very good one, because the challenge, of course, is that it's that wonderful balance of risk that many of us in business take almost on a daily basis, because you're innovating and you're trying to help the market see the way forward. If we got it right every time, then everybody would be doing it. The honest answer is it isn't that simple. From our side of things, and if I could tell a wee story, the BASF logo is in the shape of two boxes, one that fits inside the other. And that's because one of the key parts of our business is we work with our markets, we work with our key customers, and we work with our value chains to ensure that we try and fit in. And therefore, the honest answer is, yes, we work with the markets, but we don't always get it right. I'll give you an example that has gone and is going really, really well. We're working at the moment with a number of partners, including Diageo, and they are looking to put malt whiskey into a cardboard bottle. Now, I don't know who else on the call drinks malt whiskey. It's not something that is of any relevance to me whatsoever. But the reality of the situation is, would you want your malt whiskey in a cardboard bottle? Will it make any difference to the consumer? And I let that one hang as a question, because we'll know in 6 months.
Yes. No comment would be my comment. It's very interesting. It's this sort of, are you in front of the customer? Are you behind the customer? Are you creating a market? And, you know, there've been lots and lots of products which, whether they're green or not, that have taken a while for somebody to realize that they come on. We have had a question from the floor from Alec. Where does the panel see their responsibility with the next generation? And as business leaders, how can you influence them? So, Zoe, can I put that one to you first?
I mean, I think what we've actually noticed from a recruitment point of view is when you're looking at the younger generation, they're taking more time to actually think about which brands they want to work with. You know, what the ethics that they want to align themselves with. Because when you're part of a company now, you know, that's part of, you are part of that company. It's on your LinkedIn profile, and you know, you live and breathe that. So I think it's really important as well. We've done lots of work with our staff to really engage them in our objectives and our ambitions. And you know, like what Jeff said, a lot of it is down to education as well, and spending that time with them to understand like the bigger problems and how we're coming to play our part in that, so that they're really proud of, you know, who they work for. Because you know, it was like when I joined the company like 12 years ago, I did get a bit of stick sometimes. I can't believe you're working for a plastics manufacturer. And when I explained to them about, you know, it puts some of the facts straight, but a lot of people only hear about things in the press. So that's just a bit of my experience there. But I think it is extremely important to promote what you do and what the rounder experience that someone will get, because these younger generations, they're very, very clued up and they're very passionate about the environment. They're very vocal as well. So they're actually great brand ambassadors to get, you know, the youth coming into the company actually help you along the way. So yeah, I think about just evolving your company, making sure that sustainability is part of the employee journey as well. Yeah,
the thing that you said that I've never thought of before, so I'm, you know, learning point number one, is this aspect that the millennial and a generation is growing up where your LinkedIn profile is almost taken as read, so there's no sort of dodging behind who you work for. Anybody can check it out. So that's a very interesting point. That's certainly got me thinking. Chris, next generation.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, Zoe's absolutely right. You know, that battle for talent, and you know, we certainly see it coming through in the recruitment and the recruitment fairs. So whether it's millennials or Gen Z, you know, they're very, you know, very attuned to these issues. I think the trick, or the most important thing that we can do within businesses, is to encourage that and not be almost the middle, you know, the blocker that says, oh well, you know, tried that, didn't work, or oh no, that wouldn't work because of, you know, it's about empowering and making sure that people and that certainly that generation feel empowered to do it. You know, we have one of our sites in Cambridgeshire. You know, one of the guys there found that you know, we were wasting lots of plastic packaging we didn't need to do in the way that the workwear came in. Why does the workwear always come repacked in plastic every single time? It makes absolutely no sense. So he felt empowered to then talk to his line manager, talk to the site manager, and it's a straightforward decision. When you've washed all our workwear, you don't need to repack it in plastic, just send it us all back. And that saved over that site, and then expanded to all sites, a huge amount of plastics that were just unnecessary.
Yeah.
And that empowerment, we've got to find a way of getting the enthusiasm and the commitment of the next generation harnessed and empowered to make those changes. And they're probably the ones with the greatest level of, you know, innovation and asking the questions that we take for granted.
Yeah. And that's sort of the toddler test, isn't it? Because, you know, as you hit middle age, you tend to start more assuming that the world is the way it's always been, whereas younger people, and particularly those who, you know, with children, will know the phase they go through where they ask you a question like, why is the sky blue? And you go, oh, Why is it blue? And then you got Wikipedia to check it out these days, of course. It must have been more difficult in the past. But yes, that sort of almost using the younger generation and setting them out there to ask those difficult questions, to see the stuff that the rest of us oldies sort of take for granted or can't see past. That's a very interesting point as well. Jeff, next generation?
I think the starting point for many of us is as we get older, and I'll shy away from the word mature because some of us are never going to mature. As we get older and we gather experiences, many of us start to learn how little we actually do know.
Yeah.
And therefore, I formally believe it is all our duty to listen to those around us, all those voices, all those disparate opinions. Now, Chris has already talked about the fact that you have to give those opinions a chance to come forward. It may be not of their time today.
Yeah.
It may be their time tomorrow. And part of the challenge for any learning organization is you have to listen. You have to listen to all the mad, crazy people, some of them who worked in sustainability 20 years ago. Like, I've nearly become trendy. I mean, it's tremendous. You know, and there's a whole conversation regarding how we listen and how we bring those ideas on board. We also run within our business, we regularly run creative workshops, hackathons, whatever you want to call them, both internally and externally. And we get stuff put on the table, we kick it around, we get people the chance to bring their ideas onto paper. We'll then bring in engineers and say, will that work? Won't that work? How does that work? We all need to spend time shooting the breeze, thinking creatively. I can't remember who said that we all have to dream a little. And when I'm talking about engineers and chemists, some of them need to dream more, I think would be my comment.
Brilliant. Okay, Alec, I certainly learned an awful lot from the answer from that question. So thank you for that, and I hope you got what you want out of it as well. I've got a question for Andy. The need for collaboration, transparency to drive sustainability. How can companies be encouraged to share more with peers and competitors? Chris, can I throw that one to you first?
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, we're all in business, and we have owners, we have shareholders, and there is a big drive to competitive advantage, and quite right too. But there are certain things. I'll go back to where I started before around standards. If you're using the standard to create the number for the product carbon footprint, or in some of the emerging standards about water footprints, or some of the environmental product declarations, if you're using that standard, that's the challenge, to be transparent about the numbers and how they're calculated, and you're laying the challenge down for others to almost say beat this. And there's nothing better than a salesman coming back sometimes and saying, have you seen what they've got? Why haven't we got one of those? That's a fantastic pressure for an organization.
Yeah.
So let's use the standard, apples and apples. And a lot of time, unfortunately, people come back into our organization and see what they've done and they're claiming now. Whereas when you drive into it, there's no basis for the claims. It's just greenwash. But use the standards and then take the challenge.
Fantastic, Chris. And thanks for being brief, because we've only got 5 minutes left. And we've got another question after this one as well. Zoe, you talked about sort of transparency and discussions with customers as well. Have you shared with peers and competitors as well in that way?
Well, we probably, if we do a piece of research, we make sure it's available to all, because I think that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
That is where you get innovative. We're not frightened of a bit of competition as well. Like Chris said, I think it's absolutely healthy for a different point of view. But where we do share very, very often is with our suppliers. We'll trying to do this, what can you do? And we set them the challenge as well. How can you add more recycled content to your product, or can we package things a different way? And that's where we've had some really fantastic wins. It's like just really, getting people around a table. Obviously it's been over Zoom last couple of years, but it's still not breaking down those boundaries and sharing, challenging them, and having those good relationships is so key.
And thanks. And Jeff?
I suppose two very brief points to pick up on that one. First and foremost, some of the topics we're talking about within the world of sustainability are pre-competitive. And therefore, the starting point for all of us, for our society and for the world that we are currently abusing, is that we have to make paradigm shifts. And therefore, the only way to do that is pre-competitive. And that's something I'll not explore in the time we've got. And the second point, if I may, for those of us who work in larger organizations or listed organizations, the answer is we have to be transparent, because that is what's required of us. If anybody thinks that corporates hide things, I'd like to know how. And I'll leave that one there as well, if I may.
Yes, that's the answer to all conspiracy theories, isn't it? Is nobody's that competent. Right. And in terms of pre-competitive, there's the whole thing of Elon Musk sharing patents or allowing people to use patents because he sees the competitor as the internal combustion engine, not other electric manufacturers. So last question, very quickly, and we'll have to be very brief because I want to bring this in on time. Anna, could I please ask the panel members, what are those critical elements, data, technology, or maybe regulation, that may still be missing for them in everyday decision-making around production and supply value chains? So if we could start, I think Jeff needs to start this one.
Excellent. Let me take a blinding one at that one and remind everyone of something that happened at the turn of the year, something called Brexit. When we're talking about everyday and everyday decision making in industry and manufacturing, we need some decent timescales. We need transition times. We need longer lead times than most people think to make things work. So what's critical? A wee bit of time, please, is always appreciated. Thank you.
So if you had a magic wand, yes, more time. Zoe, what one thing, because we are down to 2 minutes to go, what one thing is missing from what you would like to achieve?
In regards, sorry, I missed the question about, say, data availability.
Well, what critical elements that you require to do this innovation that you're talking about? What one thing is missing?
I would actually pick up on what Chris said before about actually getting all the data to actually make fair comparisons about what we do, because every time we manufacture a product, it could be on a different machine using a different type of blend. Everything's almost unique. So I think it will be really helpful for some standardized numbers, or to make it easier to track that, and so we can give our customers primarily for us to make better business decisions. And then also translate that to our customers, give them more factual information about this is the carbon footprint, this is, all the facts and figures to help them make better decisions when it comes to choosing a product. So it's not just on cost, it's also on the environmental impact. We're a little bit further away than Chris is on.
Chris, in 10 seconds, what if you could magic something into being to make the whole process easy, what would it be?
I think it would be a full set of data sets on the big range of environmental impacts across the supply chain, if I had a magic wand.
Fantastic. Right, okay, we are right up against, it's just gone 3 o'clock, so we have to finish. Thank you all to our panel, Chris, Zoe, and Jeff, for taking part. I've learned a huge amount of that. I hope everybody watching in has learned a huge amount about that, things about finding out where the problems are and tackling the big things first. This whole idea of matching your needs with customers and maybe holding things back until the market's there, but not giving up on them because their time may come. And hackathons, fantastic idea. And this idea that people are much more conscious of who they work for and where they work for, and that driver. So thank you all for listening. Thanks to the panel for taking part. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.